Good morning. We have reached the last part of our lesson about interactions in the ecosystem, and we will talk about the energy pyramid. As you can see, our lesson does not work if we did not include the sun, because the sun is the source of energy. And according to the picture that I have put on this slide, we have levels in the energy pyramid, and as you notice, the bottom one is larger while the top ones are smaller, and this is the main idea of the energy pyramid. So in this lesson, you have to define what is an energy pyramid, and you have to describe the flow of energy from each level to the next. You have to compare the size of the populations in each energy level, and you are going to talk about what happens if one of the levels disappear. The energy pyramid has four or more levels. Why do we say four mostly? You will see later. It starts with the producers because we said in the food chain, all food chains start with the producers because they are the only organisms that can take the energy from the sun. What comes next are first level consumers or primary consumers or herbivores. Primary means first level. So they come next because the herbivores they depend on the producers for food. They eat the producers. In the third energy level, we have the second level consumer or secondary consumers or carnivores or omnivores. Let's see why. Because carnivores they eat other animals for food and omnivores they eat both animals or plants. That's why the omnivores sometimes they can come in the first uh, as first level consumer or in the second level or in the third level. It depends on what they eat. And the last level is the third level consumers. As you can see, it is the smallest and mainly it is top consumers or top carnivores. What do we see in the producers? In the producers, we can see any kind of producer like plants, like algae. Usually they have a chlorophyll and they can make their own food. Since they are at the base of the pyramid, we can know that they are found in the greatest populations. You can find the plants almost everywhere. They are in the greatest numbers. Why? Because they take most of the energy from the sun. What comes next are the primary consumers. Primary consumers like the deer, like the squirrel, grasshopper, the bird, and the rabbit. All of them, they depend on the producers to get the energy from the sun. But since they don't get the energy directly from the sun, part of the energy is lost and they get only some. That's why their population is less. And they have put them in the second level of the pyramid to show you this. So the pyramid, its shape, helps you to know that the number of populations is not the same as you go up the pyramid. As you can see in the first level consumers, most are herbivores, but you can find some omnivores like the bird, for example. We will move now to the third level. We have second level consumers, or we call them secondary consumers, or they are carnivores and some omnivores. Like the snake, like the badger, and the toad, they depend on other animals for food. Since they depend on other animals for food, they are not taking the energy from the sun directly. They are taking it from the herbivores that have already taken it from the producers that make their own food from the sun. That's why their population is much less in the ecosystem. They are not many as the herbivores or as the producers. And the last is the third energy level or the third level consumers, which are the top consumers, or we call them tertiary consumers or third level consumers. Usually, these animals they don't have much predators for them. That's why usually they are found in a very small populations and they need a large area in order to get their food because they are getting the least amount of energy from the sun. Why? Because they are getting the energy from the sun by eating the secondary consumers like the snake in the energy pyramid, and the snake which eats, let's say, the rabbit, and the rabbit that eats the fruit vegetables, and the vegetables that make their food from the sun. So whenever the organism is able to get the energy from the sun more, their population are more, their populations are more, and um, usually they are found much in the ecosystem, and that's why they put them at the base of the energy pyramid. As the amount of energy the organism is receiving is less, their population will become less, and um, if they are in the least amount of population, we call them the top consumers or third level consumers or the tertiary consumers. Now we want to explain why uh, the size of the populations become smaller as we go up in the energy pyramid. How much energy is passed from each energy level to the next? So we represented the food chains in the ecosystem by an energy pyramid. It shows how does the energy flow. But how much energy passes? Why do we have the producers are more than the herbivores and herbivores are more than the carnivores and carnivores are more than the top consumers or the top carnivores? It depends on the amount of energy. Producers can make their energy from the sun, so they have enough energy used, which is 100%. 90 of this energy, 90 out of the 100 will be used to build up their bodies and to carry out the life functions. And only 10% are passed to the next energy level. 10%, it means that the populations become smaller. And usually the organisms, they need to eat for a longer time in order to get the energy they need. That's what happens for herbivores like cows and sheep. They keep on eating for a long time. And this 10%, how much do the animals use and how much do they pass to the next energy level in the food chain or in the ecosystem? Also, the herbivores will use 90% in order to grow, to support their bodies for life functions, and they pass only 10%. 10% out of the 10 is 1%. So, the carnivores or the second level consumers, they receive only 1% of the energy from the sun. That's why the populations are very small. And usually, whenever they eat too much and they stay for a long time, sometimes in order to get the second meal. That's why these organisms are not much in the population, and usually they need to look for food in a larger space. This 1%, how much these carnivores use and how much do they pass? Out of the 1%, they need 90% for their bodies to carry out their life functions and to grow and develop, and 10% is passed to the next level, which is to the top consumers. Look, 10% out of the 1 is 0.1%. It means that the top consumers, they get only 0.1% from the energy from the sun, which is the least. Usually they live in smaller populations, and whenever they want to look for food, they have to roam around over a very big area. Like the hawk, for example, it keeps roaming around a part of Mount Lebanon, let's say, in order to find a prey. So the population is smaller. Now, do you understand why did they use a pyramid in order to represent the flow of energy in the ecosystem or in the food chain? Because also always 10% is lost, sorry, because always 10% is passed from one energy level to the next. Only producers, they get the 100% energy from the sun. So don't forget, we are talking about the flow of energy from the sun to producers, primary consumers, secondary consumers, and tertiary consumers or third level consumer, and we call it top consumers. We are back into the same idea, but I have represented it for you in a different way. So the energy passes from producers to first level consumers, second level consumers to third level consumers. My question I will ask you, how much energy do producers get from the sun? They get 100. So look what I have done. I have put for you a square that has 100 boxes, which means it's receiving 100% energy from the sun. The first level consumer or the herbivores, how much energy from the sun do they get? 10. So I have represented it by 10 boxes only. They receive 10% out of the sun, energy out of the sun. And the second level consumer, how much energy do they receive? Only 1. So out of the 100, they receive 1% only. What about the top consumers or third level consumer? It receives 0.1. I wanted even to represent it with a dot, but I was afraid that you won't be able to see it. So the top consumers, they get the least amount of energy from the sun. That's why they are found in the smallest populations. So every time an organism passes the energy to the next, it also always passes 10% and keeps the 90% for its life functions. Now we can understand by definition what is an energy pyramid. Let's read it and see. An energy pyramid shows how much energy. How much means, is it 100? Is it 10? Is it 1? Or 0.1% from the sun? An energy pyramid shows how much energy passes from one organism to another up a food chain. That's why some students, when they were solving their activity sheet about food chains, they started to put very long food chains. which is not possible because it means that the organisms will get like a very tiny dot of energy, which is not enough to support the life of the consumer. So don't make your food chains very, very long. Okay? Again, what is an energy pyramid? An energy pyramid shows how much energy passes from one organism to another up a food chain. You should underline this in your book and you should memorize it. Now we have finished the lesson. I want you to know that the populations in the ecosystem that are found in a food chain are represented by the energy pyramid to show that the amount of energy is lost as the energy moves from one energy level into the next. And they found that the shape pyramid is the best one to represent that. Now it's your turn to apply your knowledge, to apply your understanding. You have to go to your books and you solve the assigned exercises on the iSchool. Have a nice day.